Welcome, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark, and today I have Yvonne, the founder of Switcheo, to talk about decentralized exchanges and what Switcheo is doing. Yvonne, welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Now, for anybody who might not have used Switcheo's services before or might not be familiar with it, could you give us the short version of what you guys are doing?
So Switcher is basically a non-custodian DEX, decentralized exchange. So now we focus more on the non-custodian word because there's a lot of talk about what decentralized really means. But anyway, so right now we are both on the Neo blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain, and this chain operates in isolated manner. So it's like a IDEX for both Neo and Ethereum, but really much easier, especially for new users, and it's also a lot faster, both to pick up and to execute your trades. So in the future, we're actually going to move to incorporate more of the other blockchains, the upcoming blockchains, and eventually go full cross chain, meaning it will feel completely like a centralized exchange, but then we don't hold your funds. Your funds are not at risk. Basically, all your trades are still secured by the same blockchain, which your cryptocurrency itself is secured by.
I think you bring up a really good point, and that is, non-custodial exchange, because I think there has been a lot of misinterpretation by a lot of people in the community about the word decentralized in of itself, and I've made quite a few videos talking about this exact topic, and it's a situation of you're there, you exist. So it's not, not like Bitcoin where the founders are not there, right? So there's you, there's a company behind that, there's people writing the code and all these things. So it's not, decentralized in the way that some people might envisage it, but you are in control of your funds. You control your wallet. You're not putting your funds on a third party exchange and trusting them to keep your money safe. That's the key difference here, right?
Correct, correct. And for exchanges, for us, I think that's the most important thing. The other parts that we want to so-called decentralize or not take so much control or ownership of is like the trade execution itself, and that actually comes later on with our sidechain technology. Um, yeah, but so like you're saying, decentralization it can mean a lot of things. For now, switchers we don't want to compromise on the very first and the very core principle of not basically um, um, taking custody of your funds and basically doing I don't know, weird stuff behind the scenes with your funds. Yeah.
Now, by the way, for everyone out there in the audience, I've used Switcheo quite a few times for trading of Neo tokens. I haven't used the Ethereum service yet. We're going to talk about that momentarily, but I definitely am a fan of, non-custodial exchanges, let's say. So I certainly appreciate the offering that you guys have. I think it's a nice user-friendly interface, but that was just for Neo. You guys have now brought on Ethereum and obviously some Ethereum tokens. So what's like the process for this? I mean, you're running a multi-chain DEX now. So there's Neo trading, there's Ethereum trading. Can I trade Neo for Ethereum on Switcheo, or are they just have to different wallets, different access? Can you kind of explain what the onboarding process was like for getting Ethereum onto a otherwise Neo non-custodial exchange?
Yeah, correct. So at the start, we actually had the initial so-called MVP or the first version of our UI, but then we realized it's going to be a bit confusing and it's a bit messy for users to really manage so many blockchains or so many wallets. So we actually, when we had launched the Ethereum exchange, actually we revamped our whole UI and we changed we focus a lot on the wallet management so that users can actually connect basically multiple wallets to interact with multiple chains. And we also brought forward some part of our cross-chain technology. So we actually wanted to do a complete sidechain where all the blockchains can interact with each other. But then that would take at least 6 months to a year. So we brought forward a small component of it, which is to basically um, allow basically interactions between just a few tokens on each of the blockchain. So for example, Neo versus Ethereum, to be able to swap from one chain to another, basically exchange value from one chain to another. And that will actually, the interface and the interaction for that will be slightly different. But we are working really hard on it to make it very seamless for users so that let's say you are Neo and then you realize that you have Ethereum token, you don't have to go out and buy like Ethereum from somewhere else and then come back to the exchange. you can actually do everything on the same exchange, even though it's two isolated blockchain, both non-custodian, both basically smart contract based.
Very cool. I can certainly understand, the onboarding process for people and, really trying to make it as easy as possible because I think that's one area where a lot of the dexes have really suffered is in terms of actual user experience. They're not fast. There's people don't feel comfortable. That's what I've heard from a lot of people in the audience is that they're not really comfortable with using a decentralized exchange. So, how do you overcome that barrier of trying to get people to comfortably use the DEX?
Correct. So that's one of the things we have noticed also. And then like basically users always want they in the grand scheme of things when people think about what they're going to do, they always just gravitate towards the easiest option, even though it might not be the best for them because they don't. I mean, you don't put so much thought or consideration into every single thing you do. Correct. So so we want to give them that option. So one of the things we are doing is also providing a semi custodian kind of wallet, meaning that we allow them to generate their wallet similar to MetaMask, and then we will keep the encrypted and only the encrypted version of it on our server, and then when they log in, they can just use their standard email password based kind of system, which will decrypt it on their end, and then with just the email password combination, they can actually access all the blockchains and trade as if they are on a centralized exchange. But what we really want to do is to ensure that even if we give this option, the users still are secure. They don't somehow lose their password or their seed phrases and whatever. So some quite a lot of design and thinking has been put into it. We are researching basically other players who have tried something similar like Potties. I think there's one or two other Ethereum dexes who have similar services. Yeah. So that's one of the things we're actually working on currently to try to improve user experience. And then once they realize that, hey, this email password is only for Switcho, I want my wallet to be portable. I want to actually move it to a mobile wallet that I actually own, then own completely, and I want to delete my secret key off Switcho. They can do that. So that's the option that we want to give users while still sticking true to our core principles, basically.
Yeah, options are without a doubt good. Now, when Switcheo initially launched, I remember seeing that there was, there's Neo and Qtum coming soon, something like this up in the top corner. What happened to Qtum? Are we still going to see a quantum based tokens trading on Switcheo, or is that plan kind of been put on the back burner for now?
Right. So that's still on the plan. The reason why one of the main reasons why we halted it is because we knew that the demand there wasn't that high. So Ethereum was kind of struggling to have its limelight first. The other thing is also from what we learned from Neo, for blockchains that don't have actually a lot of dApps on it, we actually need to build a lot of the backend infrastructure ourselves, the monitoring, the making sure it works. Looking at how the minor differences. For example, Qtum actually still uses a UTXO-based system, even though they use the Ethereum EVM. So we have to make sure that we get all these right, and that actually took more time compared to Ethereum, where all the resources are basically online. We basically have audits. We use chain security for Ethereum audits. Whereas for Neo, Qtum, and the newer blockchains, actually there's no such economy or infrastructure around it, or ecosystem around it, where you basically can do things a lot faster. So that's So if you're an Ethereum holder, that's good news for Ethereum, I guess. But for the other blockchains, I guess they're all still getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other blockchains, I guess, outside of Quantum that you might be specifically considering? Like, are you looking at EOS or NEM or anything like this in terms of which ones you might want to be adopting next? Or are you in conversations with any of these different blockchains about being integrated into Switcheo?
So EOS, it's an interesting one, but I believe that there's a lot of people working on DEXs for EOS already. I believe there might even be one already. What we're actually looking at recently was Zilliqa, because they are actually going to launch their mainnet soon. And we are the Singapore company. Their technology looks great. Their sharding will allow us to build this kind of like traditional DEXs where you don't actually have to use a sidechain. But then you still, because of their sharding technology, we can be sure that we can execute many transactions within a short period of time. Whereas for the other, like Neo and Ethereum, we have to be extra careful, and we have to consider a lot of things like network fees, how fast we can push our transactions and stuff like that, and then try to work around any issues that we may foresee. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Silica, cool. I like it. I like it. Now, liquidity. This has been a massive problem overall for non-custodial exchanges. I mean, I was looking at some of the numbers today. We got, IDEX and like StellarX, for example. They're doing around 10x the volume that you are, and they're only around $600,000, $700,000. In the last 24 hours, Switchy was up to $72,000, which when you compare it to the big guys like Binance are doing like 880 million today, and it's a slow day in the market, right? So how do you increase liquidity? How do you get more people coming in using the service in order to increase liquidity, to increase volume actually on your exchange? And how do you actually propose to compete with those really big players moving forward?
All right. So,
A lot of questions there.
yeah, yeah. First up, I think CoinMarketCap has some issues with our volume. We've been trying to solve that because they don't actually show those smaller tokens, which actually give us quite a bit of volume, because they take a while to list these tokens. The other ones also, there's a problem where they're using our old API and they didn't upgrade, so they're not seeing our Ethereum pairs and stuff like that. But anyway, with regards to liquidity, we are very aware of what actually can be done and needs to be done. So some of the things that we are looking at, it's both external market makers, in terms of just providing some liquidity. But then if you do that, actually, you actually, the problem, the reason why people don't, or exchanges don't immediately do that, it's because of course of the risk of the exposure of holding too many types of basically ERC20 tokens. So besides external liquidity providers, we are also looking at providing liquidity on our own for stronger pairs. And we are coming out with better policies for listing, including trying to get tokens who want to list to provide some liquidity of their own, so that they don't list basically a dead pair, and there's basically no point listing it. So we feel that if tokens are confident of how of their market, basically of how they'll perform, they should be able to provide at least some sort of liquidity. We can provide the service for just putting the offers there, but that's something that we are starting to open up. So free market making. Yeah. So besides that, we are looking at how large, basically like traditional stock exchanges operate, where there's basically negative, or they call it maker rebates, negative fees for maker, meaning that when makers put offers that are taken, they actually get a cut of the taker fee, and that we hope will encourage consistent makers to come on board, where there's basically zero risks. It's all upside for them, and once there's that liquidity on the markets, then we will focus on the other side of things, that the taker side. And I think if you actually have a good spread and a good liquidity, we combine with good UX, that's a lot easier to do, and then the volume will come from there.
And by the way, the Switcheo token, what's the actual use case of that? What's the incentive for people to go out and pile up a big pile of Switcheo tokens?
Yeah. So now currently we are using the BNB model, where on the Neo blockchain we use it as fees. So because we didn't do the cross swap for Ethereum, right now we are doing basically the spending of Switcheo tokens manually. But actually, that's pretty short term. When we accomplish our goals of doing a cross-chain kind of system, that token will probably be moved to the sidechain as depending on how we decide at the time, either the POS kind of system or POS kind of system. I think that makes the most sense for us at the moment. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, recently, non-custodial exchanges have come under a lot of scrutiny, and this is part of what has really been pushing that conversation versus, well, what is a decentralized exchange, was a non-custodial exchange, et cetera, et cetera. Recently, the Ether Delta ruling in the USA was handed down. The founder of Ether Delta, who ironically no longer owns Ether Delta, was fined a lot of money. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think he for the Ether Delta founder, obviously he basically broke the law, so he was fine. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think the confusion actually arises because people tend to generalize things and tend to group things without actually analyzing what specific things are about, specific laws are about, or specific technologies are about. So in the Ether Delta case, it's pretty straightforward because the founders are US citizen. US citizens basically cannot operate security markets, and I think quite a few of the tokens that he listed on Ether Delta are allowed to list. Or at least he had the knowledge that people could operate markets on this platform. And basically he didn't do anything about it, and that's how he broke the law. It's nothing got to do with being decentralized or centralized, or it's nothing got to do with whether he owned the platform or not, because he built it with the knowledge, the intent, and he actually operated it during the time. Even though he doesn't own it anymore now, it doesn't mean that you absolve all responsibility already, right? And that's where I think the SEC got him for. So on our end, yeah, to us it's actually pretty clear cut. It doesn't matter decentralized or centralized. We from the start we have never tried to use the decentralized word to go around or to assume it's a loophole around the law. And that's why all the tokens we list, we make sure it's in line, at least with the other centralized exchanges. We don't list anything obviously a security. Anything that even might be a security, we are very hesitant to list it. So a lot of people asking, like a lot of people in our community, on our Telegram chat, on our Twitter, always ask us like, hey, your DEX, why are you not listing blah blah blah? And then you're like, yeah, DEX doesn't mean that we are above the law. Correct?
Let's list all the scam coins.
Yeah. So for example, for gambling tokens, even though there's no explicit law, or even though it's a bit vague from our legal partner's opinion, we actually block access for Singapore. I think because our Singapore market is very small, a lot of our users don't actually know that. But we do that because our gambling laws here are very, very strict, and we cannot facilitate gambling in any way for Singaporeans. So basically, if you're in Singapore, I cannot serve you anything that might seem like it's facilitating gambling, and that's why we just like, okay, never mind, let's just block access for these markets. Even though I have a feeling it doesn't actually translate to facilitating gambling, because there's other ways to use the platform without buying the token. But
better safe than sorry.
Yeah, better safe than sorry. So
now, in terms of are you available for U.S. citizens to use Switch.io?
Yes, currently, similar to other centralized exchanges, since most of the tokens are utility tokens, they like BNB to be used as fees or whatever. We have not blocked the US access. But if the situation changes, yeah, basically we'll see how. Um, one of the things that it's still on the table. It's providing decentralized KYC, DKYC for basically large trades, where we can monitor better how certain basically how certain transactions are being carried out, so that we can comply better with AML and KYC AML laws. But then again, this we will first focus on our local laws, because it's very rare that a foreign jurisdiction actually comes and basically disturb us, because they basically have no jurisdiction unless they try to work together with our own local authorities. So our main concern is always the local laws first. Yeah. So for the KYC side, it's mainly we don't want to. I think it's very, for people especially making small trades. It's very annoying to basically have to expose your data, your identity. So we're also very careful with that, and that's why we are not like saying, hey, we are going to do KYC as well. We want to see what's the best way, both for the users and for the community as large, in terms of the basically what the law is trying to protect, which is the community at large. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very tricky river to navigate in terms of regulation and international regulation. Obviously, the Americans have been wanting to have more control over certain things, but they don't control Singapore. You guys are off doing your own thing, but then you also have to comply with, the Singapore monetary rules and all that. And Singapore has been, I think, rather open in terms of
Right.
crypto projects and crypto based businesses. So that's a real positive, and it's obviously there's a reason why most, I would say probably most crypto businesses are incorporated in Singapore, because they're offering such a friendly place for it. Now, we did recently see though, Aphelion shut down, or at least shut down their decentralized exchange temporarily. Do you have any thoughts on that situation? I know that they were saying, well, the Ether Delta thing, and I guess at the same time, one of their first listings was Neon Exchange, which was like a security basically. So
Yeah, I can't pretend to say I know the real reason why they actually suddenly shut down. It's kind of strange to me. But they have a lot of reasons. Um, and I mean, they kind of sound like valid reasons, but at the same time, it's still it's still a bit off to me. Doesn't really make sense. Like, so what if there's this ruling you can still operate legally, correct? In my opinion, they actually can operate legally if they make effort to do it. So yeah, so that's all I know, and that's that's why I think it's
the mystery will remain, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, just to finish up here, what can we expect from Switch.io in 2019?
Right. So I think we can expect much better basically liquidity on all our markets. That's something we're really working hard to, and I think we are aiming to be the first cross-chain decentralized exchange, basically, or non-custodial exchange, that really operates on the principles of the blockchain. So there's some so-called cross-chain exchanges like Waves and whatever, but all of them basically use proxy tokens where there's some sort of centralization somewhere along the road. We want to be the first that don't actually resort to that. So I think 2019 will be quite exciting for us.
Hmm. Very, very cool. Well, Yvonne, we're certainly going to be watching with anticipation to see what you guys come out with next. And I know that I will continue using Switch.io when I have a Neo trade to make. And I'll have to play with the Ethereum platform yet. I haven't had a chance yet, but I'll have to go over there and dabble my toes in the water and see what that experience is like as well. Yvonne, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and tell the community a little bit about what's been going on over at Switch.io and sharing some of your thoughts on the wider non-custodial exchange climate.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show.